Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Lions Grid. It is a special Thursday night edition because on Tuesday I was traveling for work. So, Jeffrey, I appreciate you being flexible with me and all the fans out there as well as we come to you live here on Thursday at 6:30 instead of our usual Tuesday at 6:30 slot, Jeffrey. But I know it's been a little bit longer than it usually is between the end of the game and when we get to talk about it. But a big win for the Lions last Sunday, Jeffrey, over the rival Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, a lot to feel good about this week. I'm getting, speaking of having our show on Thursday, I'm getting some nostalgia from last season a bit because we used to do Thursdays
Yep.
pretty much every week. And I was just now getting used to that Tuesday schedule, and then we flipped it, and I'm getting some last season vibes, just kind of like how I got with this game, just last season vibes of us getting it done against a good team. It's beautiful stuff, especially without Aiden Hutchinson out there. Still, we dominated.
Yeah, it was we'll get into it, but that was sort of it was good to see the game end on a sack for the Lions there, getting that to help end things there. And without having Hutchinson out there, sort of huge because we had been talking all Sunday about how that was this was our first game without him. It was going to be interesting to see how the Lions went about dealing with that, and they finished the game with 4 sacks, Jeffrey. So pretty interesting there. But overall, as we sort of dive in here and I get the highlights rolling here in the background, there we go. Beautiful. Excellent. Technical stuff, all good there. So this game really was kind of a back and forth too, Jeffrey. I know we'll look at the box score here in just a moment, but really even game between these two teams. Of course, the Vikings were coming in undefeated. They were the current leaders in the NFC North. This early call by Dan Campbell that we just saw on the screen there to go for it, where they stopped us. That was a little too caliente for me there to start the game.
You like that? Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of it, but I think that just comes with the territory, especially because although, and this could be homerism here, although you do have to keep teams honest, yet make them keep us honest as far as like when we run those. So even though it doesn't work all the time, it makes it so that we're pretty unpredictable in that sense.
Yeah. It did seem though that the Vikings were ready. They stopped it, and it felt like early in a game that we sort of figured it was going to be a tough match against this Viking team with just how well they've played early on in the season. It just seemed like an unnecessary momentum shift. But I mean, that's how it always goes, right? Like when it works and it's beautiful, we get the momentum, and then things can snowball for us. And then of course the opposite side is if you fail, then momentum can snowball for the other team. So it's part of the game. It's part of the head games that get played, but it definitely, it wasn't my favorite call that he's ever had there. But the Lions were definitely able to overcome it, Jeffrey. And I think one of the big stories for the Lions coming out of this game, really across the last couple games, is the fact that I think what we have, what is it? Less interceptions than we have incompletions over the last 3 games or something like that. Something crazy stat with how well Jared Goff has been taking care of the ball, or less drops than it's some crazy stat
it's
out
a ridiculous stat, but he had another efficient game this Sunday, 22 out of 25 for 280 yards and 2 tutties. I mean, he's been playing super efficiently, like playing as a MVP candidate, perhaps.
I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn too much, Jeffrey, but I did say my dark horse pick was if this Lions offensive line could stay healthy, that Jared Goff would be tossing his name into the ring there. And Mr. Thompson there coming in on Twitch with the more TDs than incompletions. That is the stat. Thank you there, Nick. Appreciate that. He's been putting on a clinic. And it has been it's been a thing of beauty to watch.
Yeah. And every single strike that goes and it's a completion is one more dig at your father. And it's just so beautiful. It's so beautiful.
And it is certainly something that has just been great to see here. And it was good to see Amon-Ra St. Brown too. I know the slot merchant as George Pickens would call him, stepped up here for us in this game. Yeah, it was just, again, I think a thing of beauty. And, as we are trying to work towards our first ever back to back NFC title, well, I guess NFC North titles or NFC Central, because whether it was the Central or the NFC North, we've never won back to back titles. Um, this is huge because the Vikings, certainly, if they were able to get this win here, they obviously would have improved to 6-0. They would have been 2-0 in their NFC North play. Like, that would have been a great lead for them heading in here. Now the Lions improved to 5-1. We're now 1-0 when it comes to our NFC North games. I know we have a game coming up soon against the Packers, but this really sets us up in the driver's seat now, where we're kind of, we definitely control our own fate, and we're sort of out in front of the pack now, running full steam ahead, which is fantastic.
Yeah, no, and we're not overly relying on one side of the ball. We're not worried about a particular unit. I think we were worried a little bit about the pass rush, which I came to play today, right?
Mhm.
So compared to last year, right? All the entire year, our secondary was the biggest risk factor for us, right? Very unpredictable, very leaky. We did do a bend not break, but ultimately it did cost us games, and people were able to throw on us. But
Mhm.
this year is totally different, and I feel super confident about all the phases and all the units out there.
Absolutely. And two, we just saw Mr. Jameer Gibbs get in there for the touchdown, but the previous week it was a David Montgomery game after he got the payday there against the Cowboys. This week against the Vikings, it was a Jameer Gibbs day. Jeffrey, he sort of led the way there for the Lions, not only on the ground but also contributing in the passing game as well, with some key receptions. Uh, Again, we've talked about the nice thing about the fact that uh, the Lions have so many weapons that it's one of those things where you have to choose, what you're going to let, who you're going to let beat you. And it's certainly, since we do have so many weapons, makes it very difficult for opposing defenses. And Brian Flores in this Vikings defense has been one of the best on the season. So the fact that we were able to, have success against this caliber of a defense is certainly encouraging.
Yeah, especially because he's super aggressive on defense. He brings pressure a lot of snaps, and he runs a lot of cover zero, a lot of no. It doesn't look like there's any safety help or any kind of help in the secondary. He just wants to get up in the face, but we played it perfectly several times. Even on that touchdown we just came up with when we brought up that slot merchant thing again. I mean, that was an
Mhm.
absolute cover zero beater right there, and we just executed perfection.
Yeah, and one thing for the Vikings did have going for them now, Jeffrey, we were sort of doing the over under on uh, if Justin Jefferson would have 100 yards receiving or more in this game. It was one of our roaring or boring topics. And, we did keep him to under 100 yards, but he certainly did have an impact. And, when you're one of the best wide receivers, arguably the best receiver in the NFL currently, it's sort of, it was nice that he didn't run completely wild against us, but certainly he did have an impact in this game, despite, the success that the defense did have.
Yep. Yeah, and I think he's just that guy
Mhm.
regardless. I mean, even if the Vikings sucked, if they're good, he's going to be producing regardless. So I'll take it.
Yeah, it's great to see there, and you know, I think getting to see, as we just saw Khalif Raymond run the touchdown in there as well, getting to see some other guys get in the mix too.
Tim
Out
Patrick's
of
been doing great.
Yep. So we're starting to see. I don't think we're still not at the point where I think we have like a clear number three wide receiver, but we are seeing guys step up and make plays, which is going to be hugely important. As we talk about here in a little bit about the JMO suspension. So he's going to be gone here for 2 weeks. So the fact that we have been seeing other guys step up is going to be important, and certainly also I know one of the fantasy busts so far for the season has been Sam Laporta. I've seen him mentioned a few times in some different media about how he hasn't lived up. Obviously, he had a fantastic rookie season, set all kinds of records, and we just haven't seen that same level of production yet at this point through the early part of the season. But with JMO out, certainly an opportunity for Sam Laporta to step up along with those other receivers that we talked about, Patrick and Raymond. So it's going to be interesting, Jeffrey, to see, and certainly, especially with how well the team has adapted to uh, be able to get to deal with the loss of Aiden Hutchinson on the defensive side of things, I certainly trust Dan Campbell and Ben Johnson on the offensive side of things to be able to, figure things out for 2 games with JMO out. So certainly, would rather have him out there. And I think as we look sort of back at his time here in Detroit, certainly love having him out on the field. I think, Jeffrey, we talked about earlier, one of the best sort of stats that a player can have, or best traits they can have, is just availability, right? Like just being available to be on the field, to be with the team. And so, I'm not necessarily, I know I saw JMO's statement he released, and, he was taking responsibility, but at the same time wasn't really sure what had caused the violation with the PED or it's not I think they call it PES, performance enhancing substance. Yeah. So he wasn't really sure what the cause of it was or why he tested positive, but certainly again, on top of some of the other things, especially with how well he's been playing this season, I'm not overly worried, but it is, again, just slightly disappointing that this is a speed bump in what has otherwise been a great, I'm not going to say a great season, but a markedly improved season for JMO.
Yeah, I think the reps of him being out there, I mean, he gets better and better the more he's out there, and just him not just missing 2 more weeks here in the kind of the heart of the season just sucks all around. I know he was initially thinking about appealing it, but a few hours ago he released a statement saying, I don't agree with it, but I will do it to further not involve me and the Lions in any kind of like media drama kind of thing. So yeah. Who knows what's going on with that, but I think with him out, it does give away some of that deep threat and field stretching, but I think, like you said, guys have been stepping up, and I think we're gonna keep rolling.
Absolutely. And so, Jeffrey, I know it's coming down to the end of the game here on the highlights, but we'll go ahead and hop over and take a look at the box score stats, because again, this was sort of a back and forth game between these 2 teams. Of course, Jake Bates kicked sort of the field goal with 15 seconds left in the game to take the lead. And you can see, taking a look here at the team stats, 391 yards to 383, both the passing and the rushing yards being very close to each other, the yards per play. Like, this definitely, just looking at the box score, you could tell this was a sort of heavyweight bout between 2 opponents that were pretty evenly matched.
Yeah, we're the most competitive division, I'd say, right? Because the Vikings have been, we had good reason to believe that they're a good team based on the first 5 weeks of the season here, and same with us, and it definitely lived up to the expectations. With them getting that failed fake punt didn't go as planned. We kind of went down 10-0 early, but we did have a huge second quarter. We scored 21 points in that quarter.
Yeah. Yeah, that was sort of our quarter where we went off there and sort of got ourselves back into the game, and really from that point on sort of traded blows back and forth, and we're able just to outlast the Vikings there and get the win. And again, it was great to see the Lions sort of secure the win with that the sack there to end it. But again, even without Aiden Hutchinson, had the 4 sacks there. And again, we looked at the team stats, but just the parity here too, between first downs, third down efficiency. Like, we're definitely going to see the Vikings again this season, Jeffrey, at least one more time. And not a team to sleep on. Certainly happy that we were able to get the win here. And a great sort of took one for them, right? Because whenever you're the home team, especially in these rivalry games, definitely the opportunity is sort of a plus to you. Like, you should win the home games. If you can win one on the road, that's fantastic. Like, you kind of steal a game. And so certainly has that feeling like we were able to come in here, take this game early from the Vikings in the season, and it sets us up beautifully as we look to make the run again to win our first ever back-to-back NFC North titles.
Heck yeah. We just have to. That's one division opponent down. We gotta see who else is how good the Bears and the Packers really are.
Yep, we got them on the road, and then of course we have to handle business at Ford Field, which I definitely feel more confident at Ford Field, especially with the atmosphere that is down there, which I'll get to partake in this Sunday. Super excited for that.
We'll have boots on the ground, everybody. Kevin's gonna be there.
Gonna go see how we do against the Titans, and it'll be interesting to see I'm not sure if they've said if Will Levis is going to be there, if I'm going to get treated to a Mason Rudolph game, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see
Yeah,
how it goes there. Definitely, it's a game where I definitely think the Lions should win, but I'm also kind of scared that because of how bad the Titans are, that it may be that game where you're like, oh, we don't have to worry about that. But you know,
a trap game. You think? I don't know.
it
Can
could
it
potentially
be?
be. I mean, but I don't really think Dan Campbell is in the business of letting his teams get caught in trap games. But at the same time, like, especially after a big win against a division opponent, it's certainly something that I would be making sure that the team was aware to watch out for that trap. Admiral Akbar would be going off constantly.
Yeah, and the Titans just they signed away DeAndre Hopkins. He's with the Chiefs now, so that's one less problem I guess we have to deal with over there.
Just got to keep our eyes on Calvin Ridley then. Although he's had a very quiet season with his first season there with the Titans. So, all right, Jeffrey. With the Lions game discussed here, we're going to go ahead and hop in and start grinding the grid and take a look at the rest of the Week 7 action. And of course, Week 7 got started earlier last week on Thursday night, where the Broncos went into New Orleans and they beat the Saints in this game 31-10. Jeffrey, uh, pretty pretty convincing win there for Sean Payton as he returns home to the New Orleans. And yeah, I mean, Bo Nix is looking pretty good for the Broncos. And then on the flip side, obviously Spencer Rattler was in there for the Saints, but the Saints are kind of they started off with such promise, Jeffrey. It looked like maybe they had turned things around, but it is certainly become not as great of a story down there so
Yeah,
far.
I think they'd be much more competitive with Carr there. He's expected to come back, I think, this week, but he does have an oblique injury, which with that, and that just affects all kinds of throwing. It's not a good situation. So they had to thrust Mr. Rattler out there, but it's just everything else around that team just doesn't look good outside of maybe some spiciness on the defense. But yeah, they are kind of free fall in this division, and I don't think it's going to get any better. And Alvin Kamara is already kind of saying things about the media about like, man, I wish I was somewhere else, or dang right, we got to do something about trading or something like that. So he's.
Yeah, interesting times. And hello there, Headers House 7110. Glad to have you with us, and thanks for. I know you're out there in SoCal, so we appreciate you joining us here as we talk a little bit of NFL Week 7 action. Then, Jeffrey, we had the game that was played across the pond as the the Jacksonville Jaguars played their second game over there in consecutive weeks. And hopefully they let Doug Peterson get on the plane as they were able to get a victory in this game, 32-16, the final score there. And so, Drake May continues to show like he continues to look all right. But the Patriots, I think, are really just a team that's going to struggle. So even with Drake May out there, I mean, it's good that he's getting snaps and experience and all that good stuff. But I mean, I don't think the ceiling has necessarily gotten any better for the Patriots with him out there.
No, and there was a report out today that there is some grumbling in locker rooms, and someone gave out the rumor that Gerard Mayo might get removed this week. I think that's pretty salacious, but he did come out and call the team soft ahead of this game, and a lot of people came out and kind of against that. It's not a great move by a first-year head coach, Week 7, calling his players soft. Even Bill Belichick said something about it. So Max Crosby, our possible new teammate, said something about it. But yeah, it don't look good over there, but at least Drake May is looking all right.
Yeah, and for some reason, I'm not sure why, the Patriots jet was actually in Baltimore too, which was kind of interesting. Like I flew in on Tuesday to Baltimore, and then just there at BWI was the Patriots jet. So it was.
Shoot.
I'm not sure why. Maybe Kraft was using it for something.
How was the vibe? Did they seem like they were mad at their coach when you looked out the window?
They're sitting there. There's a lot of smugness, right? Because on their plane, they have all of their Lombardi trophies on the tail of the plane.
Oh, shoot.
With like as a graphic. So it's like, okay, well, that's that's something. But doesn't look like they'll be adding to that total anytime soon. So no,
No.
they won't have to repaint the plane or put on a new decal. And then, of course, Jeffrey, the Lions, as we were talking about, a 31-29 victory there over the Minnesota Vikings. Again, a solid way for us to start our NFC North campaign. But Jeffrey, why don't you walk us through the next game here that was on the schedule? The Tennessee Titans and the Buffalo Bills.
Yes. So with Will Levis out, we got to see some Mason Rudolph not wearing the black and yellow. He ended up having to throw it for 40 times, though, in a losing effort, which when you have Mason Rudolph throwing for 40 times in a game, that's not what you want.
Not a recipe for success there.
No, but the Bills end up just kind of dominating 34-10. The Tennessee looks fairly punchless right now, which I think has our defense salivating having to play them next week. But was on the other side for the Bills. I think it was like a nice win for them. They just got Amari Cooper into the building. He got his first touchdown on a play he didn't know what was going on, and I think the slot receiver told him, like, just run over there.
Keon Coleman gave him the tip. So
rolling, and that's going to help out Josh Allen because they, after Stephon Diggs one stopped playing well, but then when he was traded, a lot fell on Josh Allen because there wasn't enough to kind of make up for that offensive production. But I think Amari Cooper is definitely going to help. Josh Allen didn't have to do everything in this game, but I think it was a good kind of get right game for him.
Yeah, they needed a playmaker, and Amari Cooper, of course, had mentioned that 6 of the last 7 seasons he had over 1,100 receiving yards. So it definitely didn't look like it was going to happen if he stayed in Cleveland. So I think it's a win-win for both parties, right? They get the playmaker they needed, and Amari Cooper has a chance to continue to show that he is one of the better receivers in the league, and an opportunity with them certainly to. It'll be interesting to see now, especially with the Chiefs bringing in DeAndre Hopkins, if that's enough to help move the needle and help the Bills beat the Chiefs, who have certainly been they've sort of been the barrier that the Bills can't just seem to get over here in the playoffs.
But did it have to be the Chiefs, man? They can't keep getting away with it. They can't keep getting away with this. But with the Titans, they're 1-5 now, so dead last in the division. They're cutting assets. I think they're prepared for a top 5 pick kind of thing. And I think when Will Levis comes back, they're going to start him again because they want to kind of really see if he's worth developing and continuing on with this, especially if they have such a high draft pick coming up. So yeah, just trending down a bit for the Titans.
Yeah, I think they are safely one of the teams that you could put in sort of the bottom tier of the NFL. And it's a shame when your season is over and it's not even November yet, but unless something miraculous happens and they go on like the run of all runs, of course they're mathematically still in it, but it does not seem like at all. It's truly remarkable how far they've fallen from having Mike Vrabel and being a team that was just a couple pieces away from figuring out how to really challenge for an AFC championship and make it to the Super Bowl, to now just being hot garbage. Not even hot garbage. They're really just like lukewarm garbage. They're not.
At least we got the mayonnaise commercial. That first mayonnaise commercial that came out for the perfume. Oh my God. It was peak comedy.
All right, Jeffrey. Then we also had another one of the AFC South teams in action, the Colts, as they hosted the Dolphins. Why don't you tell us about this game here?
Another ugly game, ugly to watch. We got to see the second and third string quarterback for the Dolphins. Tim Boyle was out there. He threw 13 passes and had to go to the locker room. Snoop Huntley came out there. He threw 13 passes, 87 yards. Just ugly. Nothing's going like it's tough to watch, and it's baffling that how much lacking in offensive creativity and just execution or just anything, any kind of scheme change or anything to help out what's going on. Especially with Mike McDaniels being like the kind of offensive boy genius that he's supposed to be, right? So it's just baffling to me that you have Waddle, you have Tyreek Hill, and there's no way that you're getting them the ball and getting more than 10 points. So just bad vibes over there. Tua is slated to come back. He did say he's ready to come back, and they do plan on playing him this weekend, I believe. No guardian cap as a personal decision for him, but I hope he stays healthy. That's all I gotta say about that. But on the other side, I think Indy just is another team that's kind of figuring out what's going on with Anthony Richardson. They look much better with Flacco in the game, and
Mhm.
based on kind of their division jockeying, I mean, I would maybe even consider putting Joe Flacco back in. I mean, they're only one game out of first place behind Houston.
And in Houston is a team that is, they've when they're good, but when they're, otherwise they don't always look the part of a contender, every game they're in. So
They
it's not.
the cliche, the sophomore slump that we
Mhm, mhm.
see in like multiple sports. I think we are seeing that with Houston. I mean, they came in, D'Amico Ryans immediately changed things. They're awesome, a fiery team. They were like on the cusp of a deep run. Like with
Yep.
a rookie quarterback, everything was going great. They played so well all last season. Now it looks sloppy. They don't look, I feel like that cliche is like almost what we're seeing here with Houston.
Yeah, I think too. They there wasn't a lot expected out of them last season, and because of how much they overachieved, I think it sort of made you forget the fact that it is only D'Amico Ryan's second season as a head coach, that it's only C.J. Stroud's second year in the NFL, and so they had so much success last season that it almost seemed it's similar with like right what we're seeing with Sam Laporta. He did he had a record breaking rookie season, so that unless he comes out and somehow manages to do better than that, like it's gonna be a disappointment. So I think the Texans, they just overperformed so much that it is one of those things where they're just not looking as good just because of how well they did, which is unfortunate. But that's the way so many things in life work, right? It's not what you've done for me; it's what have you done lately.
It
So
is kind of funny that we're covering the Dolphins and the Indianapolis Colts right now, but we've talked more
talk
about the
more about the
Houston
Texans.
Texans. That's what you got. That's what you got to take away from this game. Whew,
Yeah, most
that's ugly.
certainly. I think that's a keen observation there, Jeffrey.
Oh
But
my
here,
wow.
Jeffrey, I know this was your lock of the week game. Why don't you walk us through what happened
Yeah,
here?
as soon as I said that Seattle looks like their wheels are falling off on them and and Kirk Cousins is going to have their way, it was the exact opposite. Seattle came to play. They did not look back 34-14. Uh, it, it was surprising because I think their offense on Seattle has played mostly well throughout the season. Their defense has been
Mhm.
super leaky on the run, especially, but like they came out looked like an absolutely different team, and that could be said for the Atlanta too. They looked like an absolutely different team as well. Just a flip flop on where I expected them to be. Just kind of took me off guard. I was willing to throw my lock on it.
Yeah, I know one of the big things for the Seahawks is that we talked about when we played them that their front seven had a lot of injuries, especially along the defensive line. And you saw Byron Murphy come back in this game. You had Leonard Williams out there, so they're starting to get some of those pieces up front on this defense back, and you can see a marked improvement once they have their full complement of players out there. At least that's what it looked like here against the Falcons. So. Defense definitely I think was benefiting from having them back, but certainly just a game where I mean, really from the get go, the Seahawks came out and it's. I think we sort of forget that up until they played the Lions, they were undefeated on the season, and it's just a reminder that they are a dangerous team as they sort of dismantled the Falcons here, who have been looking game, but certainly a bad game there for Kirk Cousins and Michael Penix got his first regular season action
Yeah.
as a result.
Yeah, and the three turnovers versus zero turnovers, I think that's the biggest difference. One of them was returned for a touchdown, and they just didn't look good for Atlanta. And I should have known better. It's spook season, and I picked a lock involving the two spookiest teams in the NFL when it comes to like playing weird games where things just don't like happen normally. So that's probably on me.
It's a tough one. My lock of the week here, Jeffrey, is the next game up. And of course, we already talked about the Texans a little bit here and what they're going through, but they did drop this game 22-24 to the Green Bay Packers. The Packers were able to win. They were favored by 3. So, I mean, if you were betting, if you're placing bets, they did not cover the spread, but they do get the victory. Joe Mixon looked good for the Texans in this game, Jeffrey. He had 115 yards and 2 TDs. Jordan Love continues to seem like he wants to be the reborn version of Brett Favre in the sense of he will just sling it everywhere and anywhere, and he doesn't really seem to care. Which, I mean, I think serves him well because he's not scared to make the big plays. And sometimes, I mean, thankfully for the Packers, a lot of the times that equals them getting points on the boards. And when they do make, when it is unfortunately a turnover, they sort of seem to recover from it anyways. But yeah, CJ Stroud in this game, as we mentioned, Jeffrey, definitely a game where that sophomore slump comes into question. Went 10 for 21 for only 86 yards in this game. And of
Hardly.
course,
Those are
yeah,
Will Levis, Mason Rudolph numbers, man.
and it's as a Tank Dell fantasy football owner, was certainly you don't want to see Nico Collins get hurt, but the fact that he has been hurt, I was hopeful that maybe Tank Dell would see a little bit of action with that going on, but he posted the big donut in fantasy football this week. Of course, CJ Stroud only throwing to 86 yards. None of those yards went to him. So Tank Dell, I know he obviously injured his knee last season as well during his rookie run, but another guy who's in that sophomore slump there as we continue that storyline. And then for the Packers, Brandon McManus, their kicker signing, looked good in his first action with the Packers there. Kicked a 45-yarder at the end of the game to get them the win.
Yeah, the NFC North just keeps on rolling. We're showing teams that we're the best kind of thing. But on the other side, I guess outside of the game, the Packers hired Robert Saleh as on the offensive staff actually to give a defensive perspective on the offense, and I think that's a killer pickup for sure. I think that's going to only help them. I don't know if he's actually going to be consulting on offense. I don't know why. He's a defensive guy. That whole thing didn't make sense to me. But yeah, the Packers scare me a little bit as far as kind of being like our main nemesis here.
Yeah, there's a reason why Lions fans have FTP as a saying that they love and hold dear. But I will say, that it is a masterclass in petty by the Packers with everything they've had with Aaron Rodgers to then hire Robert Saleh. I know him and Matt LaFleur have a pre-existing relationship, but it feels like one of the more trolly signings, and that they could just be doing it for the memes and to piss Aaron Rodgers off, and I'm here for it. It is fantastic. When people say the NFL is scripted, things like that are certainly certainly help add credibility to it.
Like giving plot armor to Matt Patricia, just shows up anywhere and everywhere and gets a job.
Yes, sir. And then AFC North action for you, Jeffrey. We had the Bengals and the Browns facing off. The Bengals were able to get a 21-14 victory here over the Browns. I think the biggest news coming out of this game, Jeffrey, was the season-ending injury to Deshaun Watson. We'd been talking about how that situation wasn't good. He's been one of the worst quarterbacks so far statistically this season. His play has been just abysmal, but they've been stuck in holding him in there at starting quarterback because of the whole contract situation and everything. And then to have him go down with that injury, and then it's a very, on the one hand, it's very complicated because, generally speaking, you don't want to see fans cheering for a player to be injured. We typically, that's usually pretty fair, but unfortunately with everything surrounding Deshaun Watson, it's kind of hard to feel super bad for him, even though you had Myles Garrett coming out and saying since he's been in the NFL, he's been a model citizen.
Yeah, that's a little rich. Yeah, I'm never for wishing ill on players I don't like, regardless of what they are on the field, off the field. I hate me some Aaron Rodgers, but seeing him go down with the Achilles was just a bummer because I'd rather see him get beaten rather than him getting broken out there. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So just not a good situation around. But they do get what I think is probably the most unironically funny player to play quarterback, Jameis Winston. He's going to be playing some Jameis Winston ball. One, their offense is going to go up. Two, their turnover differential is going to start to suck because he is an absolute menace when he is throwing the ball.
He definitely is a Jordan Love type guy where he is not afraid to sling it. And they did originally try to put DTR in there, Dorian Thompson Robinson in at QB against the Bengals, but he was definitely struggling throwing the ball. He was much more effective running the ball. He was actually their number one rusher in the game.
Ooh, and
But
Nick Chubb came back today too. But
yeah,
we got to work him back.
they do get Nick Chubb back. They do have to face Baltimore this week, so back-to-back games for them. So that's against AFC North rivals. So tough sledding here for the Browns as they look to start off in the post Deshaun Watson era, and it'll be interesting to see just what happens with everything now, adding that season-ending injury into the mix with just how public opinion is not good with Deshaun Watson, to put it lightly. So it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, the Browns quarterback situation is legendary with how bad it's been. You see the jersey where the guy has posted like all the starters' names that they've had, and since like Tim Couch and all that, and this is just another chapter.
Viable quarterback in the building playing for them. He just got a little hurt. And then it's nice not to be the clown organization of the NFL.
Yeah. I mean, it is at this point, it is just a saga that is going on there with the Browns as they look for their franchise quarterback. Definitely have to be kicking themselves about getting rid of Baker, because he certainly has been looking really good down there in Tampa Bay, but it is just, I don't know. And on the other side of things, I mean, kudos to the Bengals for going ahead and getting a win here. They do improve to 3-4 on the season. So as they try to be one of the only 0-4 team to make it to a Super Bowl, they still have a long road ahead of them. But they are up to 3 wins now, so they've almost gotten back to 500. They're taking it a game at a time, Jeffrey. But
yeah, that's kind of what you got to do in that situation, especially in a situation like this when you are expected to be one of the better teams in the division. Albeit a competitive division, but at least one of the more upper half to quarter half of the AFC. So if they really have that championship medal, they can get out of this and do this. But like you said, it's a long season.
Yep, and a long road still to go here. Then, Jeffrey, in a revenge game, Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles headed into the Meadowlands, and Saquon certainly had himself a day in this game, Jeffrey. I know he was getting close to being able to set the single game record for rushing yards, and Saquon, the more that I learn about Saquon Barkley, the more that I like him. He had 176 yards in this game on 17 carries. But he had, the coach asked him if he wanted to go back in there and run more to try and get the single game rushing record. And he said, no, I want to see, my younger brothers go out there and eat against the Giants and have them go get some experience and some yards. So, I love the fact that he didn't want to just get it in garbage time. Hello, Deku. Thank you for making an appearance here.
We got a special guest today.
Yeah. So I appreciate that he didn't want to just, run it up in garbage time after they had vanquished the foe and wanted his teammates to get their fair share there in garbage time. But certainly put the Giants on notice there for what they're missing out on with their decision not to bring him back.
Yeah, I probably would have been more petty, to be honest with you. I think I probably would have gone for it.
You don't say, Jeffrey.
I could be a little petty, but it's the Eagles look like they picked up a stud here. It's kind of it's interesting to watch with the Giants backfield trying to make up for them losing Saquon in the offseason, and it is not looked good. I think Singletary looked all right in the first bit of the season, but he got hurt with a back or a chest injury. The rookie has looked better than him, I think, but overall just not good, and just overall bad vibes from the Giants. Speaking of bad vibes around, it's the Giants are not looking good.
Yeah, they looked like maybe they were going to be a scrappy team that may be better than we thought they were going to be, but then at least here they certainly looked more like the team we thought they were, Jeffrey. So I think both Brian Dable for the Giants and still Nick Sirianni, I mean, he gets a week of talk about not being on the hot seat, I guess, but I think they're still very much as far as we're concerned on the hot butts list, both of these coaches. But it'll be interesting to see. Certainly more expected out of the Eagles this season than the Giants. So we'll have to see what the Eagles can ultimately do and if they can live up to expectations. All right, Jeffrey, this next game, a showdown between the Las Vegas Raiders and the Los Angeles Rams. Why don't you walk us through this one?
Yeah, 15-20, kind of an ugly game on one side because Oakland. I always try to call them the Oakland Raiders still, even though so many years. The Las Vegas Raiders are still trying to find themselves on offense, especially now that they don't have Devontae Adams. Gardner Minshew's had to come into the game because Aiden O'Connell injured his finger, so he threw 3 picks. Not great. On the other side with the Rams, they're still, it's clear that they're lacking weapons and just talent on the offensive side of the ball. Matthew Stafford only hitting 14 of 23 for 154 yards and a pick. Just another ugly game here overall, but it more so it's exciting for me when I was watching it. I was watching Max Crosby, imagining him in a Honolulu Blue uniform. Yeah.
The Raiders did sign Desmond Ridder, though, Jeffrey. So, I mean, their quarterback woes may soon be at an end.
Arrow up.
And then I am very glad that one of the rumors that was out there for the Chiefs was a potential Cooper Kupp trade. So I am happy that as of yet he has not gone to a contender there, and the Rams seem to be holding things steady. I did see they also are activating Puka Nacua for tonight's game against the Vikings, as those are our two Thursday night teams are the Rams and the Vikings. So, yeah, certainly. I mean, the Rams are definitely a dangerous team. Matt Stafford, of course, we know what he is capable of, and really, if it wasn't for the injuries, I think this season would be on a different trajectory for the Rams. But they are trying to do the best they can with what they have, and really, they're in a position where that's all they can do.
Hey, they are hanging out at 2-4 at the bottom of the standings, but right next to them is San Francisco at 3-4. So, a little bit of they're not too far out.
Still dangerous. Then, Jeffrey, in a game that we'll see that ended up making it so Bryce Young will be returning to the starting job, why don't you talk us about this Carolina and Commanders game?
Yeah, it was Danny Dalton, 11 for 16 for 93 yards and 2 picks. That you don't want to see that ever. Marcus Mariota was in the game here for the injured Jaden Daniels, but he did pretty well. He threw for 205 yards and 2 touchdowns. But I think it was just a better team, just absolutely just taking care of business against a pretty horrid team in the Panthers. And Andy Dalton was involved in a car accident actually this past week and injured. He got an injury. So, like you said, we're going to see Bryce Young again this season next week here
for the Panthers. Yeah, certainly. It's just a interesting situation there. So, yeah, Dalton out with that the car crash, and just it's weird. I know. I think I also saw something, and I didn't have it. I'll fact check it now as I'm saying it live, but I believe I saw something with Josh Reynolds too. Of course, he's with the Broncos. Yep, wounded in a shooting after leaving the strip club. So,
oh shoot, okay.
It's been a weird week for like non-football. Yeah.
Whew, yeah, it's not good. Hopefully, they all make a great good recovery.
Absolutely. Speedy or best wishes all the way around. And unfortunately, speaking of a shooting, we did see here in this game with Kansas City and the 49ers, the rookie wide receiver, Ricky, I don't know if I can pronounce it, like Ricky Purvis. I don't know how you pronounce it. The Florida State kid who was unfortunately shot in the chest is back out there and has played before Christian McCaffrey. So yeah. I don't know, someone needs to look in the mirror because the rookie's out here. He got shot in the chest and he's already back on the field. Somebody's got some bad hamstrings and hasn't been out there yet.
You're right.
Pearsall. Thank you, Nick. There we go. Pearsall. There we go. That's easier than I thought. But yeah, why don't you talk to us, Jeffrey, about this
So
matchup
yeah,
between.
so a Super Bowl rematch here against San Francisco and Kansas City. Should have been us. We would have won, but that's aside. Um, but it was a close game. Patrick Mahomes is still not like looking as sharp as he used to, but he did have a productive game here. He had to throw the ball 46 times, though. I don't know if that's necessarily what you want. But through 2 touchdowns, 333 yards, and a pick. But it's looking like for the 49ers, they're getting that huge IR kind of bug this year where they're getting so many injuries and people are out hurt. They're not at their full strength. It's looking very different than it was last year and very similar to 2020 or 2019 when they kind of like had to put in like Christian McCaffrey in that as emergency quarterback.
Yeah, injuries are mounting there. Brandon Ayuk now out with his
Mhm.
injury. Debo Samuel dealing with the fluid in his lungs from pneumonia. How he caught pneumonia being based in San Francisco, I have no idea. But it's just yeah, crazy stuff. And the Chiefs, Jeffrey, they just keep rolling. They just keep winning.
And I just thought after watching this game, I was thinking in my head, I was like, okay, I've been saying for weeks they have to prove to us that they're not the champion, but they were starting to look a bit like a paper tiger where there's like something is going to just knock the dominoes down and they're just not going to be good. Then they go out and get DeAndre Hopkins, who's probably going to have a senior renaissance over there.
Just when you think they're out,
That's when you thought they're out, man.
find a way to pull themselves back in. A team that has not found a way to pull themselves back in, Jeffrey, is the Jets. Despite Aaron Rodgers getting his entire wish list, although I did see that the Vikings released his tight end that he used to play with and the Packers, so maybe they'll go and add him to the mix now.
Okay.
Runyon, he got released.
Oh, Runyon.
Yep. So they might go. They might just add him, and then he'll really have his whole wish list there.
Ooh,
But
yeah.
first game with Devontae Adams, and struggled to find. Did Devontae even have a catch? I know he had. I think he had 4 targets, but I don't think he actually was able to bring any of them in. Oh no, he did. He had 3 for 30 yards, so he was able to catch some of them. But it was definitely a struggle. The offense looked, I guess, a little better, but for what small improvement you saw in the offense, the defense looked much worse, which, of course, they promoted the defensive coordinator to take over as head coach, and Robert Saleh is known for being a defensive minded coach himself. So it's a question of, was Robert Saleh more involved in the success of that defense than they originally thought, or is the fact that the defensive coordinator is now splitting his attention and having to be the head coach as well as leading that defense, is that being detrimental to him? Hard to say. But then on the flip side, Jeffrey, Mike Tomlin and these Steelers, man, speaking about another team that just keeps winning, of course, Russell Wilson getting the start here this week. 2 touchdowns, 264 yards, Jeffrey. And I think really he didn't
Steelers
play.
Nation.
It didn't feel like he played a whole lot better than what we saw out of Justin Fields, except for the fact that I think Russell Wilson isn't afraid of making mistakes, right? Like he's had his long NFL career. Yes, he's coming out of his time with Denver, which I think was just a low point in his career. But at this point, he's just says, F it. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to ball, right?
Yeah,
And
and
so
I think their offense looked a ton better with him out there. He's a much better passer than Justin Fields is. He's going to go for those deep balls. We saw some good deep balls. They were trying to feed always effing open Pickens out there.
yeah.
Yeah, they're going deep, and it's looking less like they do like to run the ball. They're definitely a power run team, control the clock, that kind of thing. But I think Russell Wilson with his deep shots kind of opens up a whole new thing for their offense that they just didn't have.
Yeah, and I'm not usually a fan of a 2 quarterback system because I'm of the mind that if you think you have 2 quarterbacks, you really have no quarterbacks. However, I will say in this particular case, given Justin Fields, Justin Fields has been playing well this season. If something does happen to Russell Wilson again where he gets injured and has to fill in, I think the Steelers should feel pretty confident in Justin Fields' ability to come out here and lead the offense. But also just the added dimension, his extra mobility that he brings to the table over Russell Wilson could be a great thing to have in the red zone, especially So certainly, Russell Wilson can be out there 99% out of the time, but having some packages in there for Justin Fields, I think, could be a good thing for them moving forward too. Just because there were a couple of times in the game where there were certainly opportunities, I think, for Russell Wilson to scramble, and him not being, him being a little bit older now and further in his career, less likely to just take off like he used to. So Justin Fields having that extra running dimension could be something that they look to explore. But at the same time, Mike Tomlin, as we said, 17 consecutive winning seasons. I mean, trust the man to do what he just let him cook, because he all he does is win.
Yeah, there was a fun moment in this game where, how Aaron Rodgers is really good at kind of getting the defense to have the too many men on the field kind of thing for a free play.
Yep.
And Mike Tomlin kind of saw that and snuffed it out right when he was doing it. And they kind of looked at each other, and Mike Thompson had this shit-eating grin on his face. It's like, sir. And Aaron Rodgers kind of gave a nod at him. I love the gamesmanship right there against two veterans and two people who really know football. As much as I give Aaron Rodgers shit for being a crazy dude, he knows his football. So it was good to see. It was good to see that. And with the Steelers, I think their defense, regardless of who's at quarterback, is going to keep them in the game. And they just have to be average. They just have to be average on offense. And I think a combo of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields can get you just that.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that AFC North, I know the NFC North is certainly, I think, the best division, but between the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Bengals, certainly three solid teams there as well in that AFC North. All right, Jeffrey, 2 Monday night games this week. Why don't you, speaking of AFC North teams, talk to us here about the Ravens and the Buccaneers?
Yeah, Lamar Jackson balling out again, 5 touchdowns. Derrick Henry having some huge yardage, 169 carries. Rashad Bateman, 121 yards, a touchdown. Overall, I'd say, for Tampa Bay being down by 10 points, I mean, they didn't play all too poorly. They went through a stretch that went through the second and third quarter where things are just not working for them. They also had a gruesome injury to Chris Godwin, and also Mike Evans was taken out of the game. So despite all that, they only were down by 10, and they scored 21 points in the fourth quarter to try to get it in there. But it's just not enough when you have your two best guys out of the game against the Baltimore Ravens.
Yep. Mike Evans is going to miss multiple weeks with his injury. And of course, Chris Godwin, he's done for the season with his injury. So big time losses there for Tampa Bay, and certainly going to be interesting to see how that impacts the NFC South race there with them and the Falcons. They're playing again this week for the second time. So some opportunities there for
now. Baker's going to have to step up, and I think the biggest problem with him, in his resurgence now is just throwing picks. I think he's just got to limit his turnovers, and it's going to be tough because he doesn't have some of those guys bailing him out on some of those passes.
Yep, and then I think another interesting thing here, Jeffrey, is just the fact that I just lost my train of thought. What was I going with here?
Dude, it's almost Friday. It's almost time for the weekend. We've all been working hard. You were traveling.
I remember what it is. So they scored 21 points in the fourth quarter, Jeffrey. The Buccaneers did, to bring this game close. But Tampa Bay, there have been 2 onside kicks that have been recovered so far this season with the new kickoff rules, and Tampa Bay has both of them. One against the Cowboys and one here against the Ravens. So interesting. Or wait, no, it was the Cowboys against. They both happened against the Ravens. That's what it is. The Cowboys were able to get one against the Ravens, and Tampa Bay was able to get one against the Ravens. So,
okay.
Apparently, if there's a team that you want to attempt an onside kick against, it's apparently Baltimore.
Yeah, is that fluky? What is that to say about the special teams? Is it just new rules? But yeah, it'll be, I wonder how many will be, what kind of the recovery percentage will be when we get to the end of the season. I know they were talking, at least on, not necessarily on the onside kick, but they were talking about making a little bit more of an alteration towards the kickoff rule as well, because the league officials and the higher ups seem to like what's going on. But yeah, they're, we'll see if this is a trend that continues here. Maybe some special teamers have gotten the sauce and they know what's going on here. They know how to operate in the new rules.
figuring it out week by week. And then our last game of the week, Jeffrey, why don't you walk us through the Cardinals and the Chargers?
Uh, yes. So the Cardinals end up winning 17-15. So it was a tight game all around. Justin Herbert did throw for 349 yards, but no touchdowns. Kyler Murray, though, on the other hand, 14 for 26, 145 yards, a tutty, and an interception. So it was just a close kind of. It was a bit of an ugly game, I would say, overall. But the Cardinals grinded out the win. They didn't have Marvin Jones Jr. out there, so they got it done without him. They got torched by Gorch.
Getting the old Gorge torch.
Actually, they didn't get torched by Gorch because the leading receiver for the Cardinals was James Conner, actually.
Yeah, he had
Two receiving yards for 52 receptions for 51 yards was their highest total they could get. So outside, I guess, of James Conner, there's not a lot going on here.
he did seem to be the main focal point there for him. And again, it was just a game where not a whole lot happening, not a lot of yards. It was 326 yards total for the Cardinals. So not a whole lot going on there offensively, but just enough to get it done, Jeffrey.
This is a Jim Harbaugh fever dream type of game, though. Just ugly, grinded out, just low points. Having your running back be the top leading receiver, it's just he loves this.
It is sort of his ideal situation. Well, Jeffrey, we've grinded the grid, which means it's time to go into our King of the North update. And of course, we've been talking about it. Oh, I have it reversed here. The hot butts, Jeffrey. Sorry. A lot of the names on the hot butts list have stayed the same. I think certainly, especially here early on, there's only a week or two that happen here in between things. So, Nick Sirianni did get the win over the Giants, but he's he should be here. Should probably add in Brian Dable too, because he is certainly looking like things aren't going great for him. But Mike McCarthy, he got the week off, but he's still on here, with the Cowboys on the bye. But there's it's going to be interesting to see how many openings are going to be there at the end of the season. And certainly, obviously the Jets have their Ulbrich in there as the interim head coach. But certainly, I don't know if that's going to be something where he is ultimately secured as the head coach moving forward, or if GM Aaron Rodgers decides that if he is going to come back at the end of the season, who he wants in there as the new head coach. So
GM Aaron Rodgers is going to – this is what I think. I think he's going to retire at the end of the year. Devontae Adams is just going to be like, what the heck, man? I got traded to 2 different teams to play with my friends, and here I am. And both situations were ass.
And Blade coming in here with I wonder if Joey Bosa could be traded. I'd take him in Detroit. Certainly, I think I would take either Joey or Nick Bosa in Detroit. But I think probably Joey's probably the easier one to get. But I also, I think in terms of play too, Nick has been a little bit more dominant there for the 49ers than Joey has here lately with the Chargers. But certainly, I think even though we did see some good pressure from the Lions in this game, they were able to get the 4 sacks against Minnesota, Jeffrey. I still wouldn't say no to having some more pass rushers on the roster.
Yeah, the Titans look like they're sellers. We might be able to get I just forgot his name. Their edge rusher over there. Which if you're on a 1-4 team, let's get some pass rushers. Why not? Even if they're just 1-year rentals, if we can get some fresh legs in there and just kind of keep it a rotation and keep it up, I'd be totally for that.
Absolutely. And then, Jeffrey, now the King of the North update.
Yes.
And of course, you can see the Lions where we rightfully belong.
Yes, taking the
on
top
of the division. Currently 5-1, 1-0 in the division. 5-1. The Vikings there in second place. They're 1-1. The Packers do move up to third just because they're now 5-2 with the Bears on the bye week. But the Packers are 0-1 in division play. The Bears 4-2 on the season and have yet to meet an NFC North opponent. So the only one of the 4 teams that has yet to take on a division rival here. But certainly, again, best division in the NFL. I think so, Jeffrey. And I know when the Packers were in fourth place, they were like the first team ever to lead the NFL in points differential and be in fourth place in their division. So that, speaks a lot to how good this division is when the fourth place team leads the NFL in a stat that is often, very reflective of, um, you know, quality of the team. So,
I
uh,
I bet everyone. There's a version of Kevin and Jeff having their own like Packers grid, Vikings grid, Bears grid out there, and all of us are saying, "Man, right when our team gets good, the rest of the NFC North ascends with us. Why? Why now?"
well, unfortunately, those other versions of us, those bums, their teams have all won back-to-back NFC titles, or have
Yeah,
multiple division wins. We, unfortunately, as the Lions versions, Jeffrey, we're sort of celebrating our first ever NFC North title and only our second ever title. We had the one when it was the NFC Central, so we unfortunately have not had the luxury that those other versions have with some of the success that those teams have had. So it's especially painful for the Lions, but the Lions so far have proven they're up to the challenge. And even though it is certainly a very competitive division, uh, I definitely still like our chances here to come out here. We're just like the Chiefs. We're the kings until someone comes out and knocks us off. So right now, we took a very good shot from the Vikings here in Week 7. We were able to, withstand it and overcome it, get that 31-29 victory. And the fact that we were able to do that 1 week after losing one of the key pillars of this team in Aiden Hutchinson, I think is huge. So, um, again, just a slightly worried as we get ready to take a look at our opponent on Sunday with the Titans, that maybe it could be a trap game just because of the feeling of relief of beating this division opponent and then playing a team that on paper should be no threat to us. But again, I'm hopeful that Dan Campbell is going to be so cognizant of the trap mentality and just not let the team fall into that.
I think I'm a little bit more confident than you. I think we're gonna roll. Maybe I'm being too confident, but
I mean, I expect us to roll as well, but it's just the cautious part of me is like, hey, we should roll, but that I mean,
let's roll with a purpose, kind of
yeah,
thing.
let's
Yeah,
not forget the fact that they are an NFL team. I
yeah.
understand Mason Rudolph might be behind center, or I mean, if it's Will Levis, I might actually feel better just the way that he's helped throw games away this season. But at the same time, like, let's not take it for granted until we're in the locker room and we can celebrate the win. Because
That's right. I, for one, will not be eating mayonnaise for the rest of the week
in
in
pro,
in preparation for the game. So watch out, Tennessee.
I like it, Jeffrey. And if you liked it and enjoy what you're seeing here on the show, and you want to help the channel grow, please do like, subscribe, and follow. I know on YouTube we're up to 55 subscribers now, Jeffrey. So,
Awesome. Yeah.
pushing ever closer. So I think if we could hit 100 by the end of the season, that would be fantastic. So if you are watching the video or you're watching one of the clips or something like that we have as well, again, if you want to help support us and help the channel grow, a like, a follow, all that good stuff is very much appreciated. And certainly, again, I want to thank everyone here today who participated in chat. Hatter's House, Blade, Tomp852, Nick Thompson, a good buddy of ours. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, Jeffrey, it's another episode, another win here. And of course, we'll be back on Sunday prior to the game against the Titans and do a little preview there and sort of lock in our locks of the week and all that good stuff.
Do you have a champ or chump for the week?
Oh, champ or chump, you're right. Jeffrey, I was getting premature there. Jeffrey, why don't we jump in and why don't we start off with your champ there?
My champ, I'm going to have to give it to Brian Branch.
Just back-to-back weeks. I like it,
Brian Branch weeks, because I think I expected coming to the season the offense to be rolling. I expected us to be efficient. I think they're meeting my expectations of what they're right out there. What I didn't have any expectations for was the defense, and being led out there by Brian Branch. Even when Aiden Hutchinson goes down, he's playing like a veteran in only year two, and you got to give it to him, man. He's flying out there. He's getting picks. Looks great.
Yeah, we've had the roaring or boring before on the show, Jeffrey, about him and Kirby Joseph being a top 5 safety pairing. And between the two of them, the play this year has been outstanding. So they can keep that rolling. Certainly like what we're seeing from our two safeties. So I like that pick. I have an honorable mention and my champ of the week. My honorable mention is gonna go to Jahmyr Gibbs. Again, he had 116 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing. And then he contributed another 44 in the passing game. So certainly I think he was a big focal point for that offense, and he delivered for us in this game. So he is my honorable mention because I know he got the game ball, so he already feels all special and everything with that. Good for him. That's my honorable mention, but my champ is going to be Mr. Jake Bates, Jeffrey. He's been pretty good on the season, but this was his first real opportunity to come out here and seal a win for us, and he was able to do so again against an undefeated opponent on the road, probably the biggest kick of his life. He's mentioned how a couple of months ago, before the UFL season, he was down in Alabama trying to sell bricks, and now he's here. He was in that position,
selling bricks to laying bricks
kicking a game-winning field goal to just break the Vikings. He's got to get the champ of the week for me. Stepped up in a big spot, knocked that kick down.
Yeah,
big stuff there.
I love that pick.
And then Blade coming with a first game in front of our fans without Hutch, feeling bad for Tennessee. So he's definitely on.
Me too, Blade.
He's definitely feeling that a stomp could be happening there to the poor Titans. And by all means, I think it certainly looks that way. Just wanting to make sure we don't get too far down that rabbit hole. But then, Jeffrey, who do you have as your chump of the week this week?
I have to give it to the stupid merchant, George Pickens.
Mm-hmm.
I think anytime he opens his mouth, he leaves all doubt on whether he's a fool or not. He can be productive, and I do follow some of the NFL social media, and one comment really stood out to me about him in particular, and it was like, he is the best player in the league for one play a game. And I absolutely believe that. He's got unreal athletic ability, but I feel like he just gets in his own way, and just, calling out other people like Amon-Ra St. Brown for producing when you can't produce. Like, come on now.
I like that, Jeffrey. My chump of the week, I am going to go with GM Aaron Rodgers in this one. He got his wish list. Robert Saleh's gone. He got Devontae Adams. He's gotten pretty much everything he's wanted, and it just still has not looked good on the field. It's just one of those things where it's not looking good for the Jets. So they've sort of gone all in on this process. And so, I mean, obviously you could talk about, Woody Johnson, and just there's plenty of blame to go around in that organization for why they are where they are. But for me, it's got to be Aaron Rodgers, just because of the fact that it just seems like everything is sort of going the pieces are all falling how he'd want them to, and it's just not leading to success for this team. So, it's not a good situation there in New York, and they're not technically out of it at this point in time. I think the Bills are certainly the front runners there, but with the Dolphins struggling with the Tua injury, New England not looking great. I mean, they're in a division where they still have a chance. They got to try and keep pace with Buffalo, but I
think that's their only chance. I think they're given a big boon by the rest of the division sucking.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the Bengals. They have like a long road ahead of them if they do want to make it there, but the opportunity is still there. So we'll have to see if maybe bringing in Runyon at tight end, is that the last thing he needs? Maybe that'll
Runyons, man. Gonna run it back like the early 2010s, man.
It might help AA Ron sort of get back to where he needs to be.
Eating his
So
bugs. Oh man, he was very defensive about the eating bugs. Makes me think, someone's so defensive about it.
he was probably eating. He's probably eating them bugs, man. I mean, we've seen Mark Sanchez as a Jets quarterback sneak the hot dog on the sideline. So if Mark Sanchez can sneak a hot dog, why can't AA Ron sneak some bugs?
Oh, the Sanchez. That was fun. For me, that was a fun time for the Jets having Rex Ryan kind of, because I just like characters like that in the NFL, and I think he was a pretty, to me, a hilarious character, and I think those Jets teams were pretty good.
Minus the butt fumble, they were definitely. I mean, they were one of the few teams that could sneak in there, and the defenses were certainly very good. So yeah. But yeah, those are our champs. Those are our chumps, Jeffrey. So I'm sure we'll get a plenty of options to choose from here in week 8 of the NFL action. But
hard to believe we're in week 8 already.
Time is flying. Yeah, we're almost here. It's the last full week of October.
Yeah, because I think next Friday is the 1st.
Next Friday is the 1st. Yeah, man, wow.
Here we go. We're into turkey season now.
It is time she is a flying. So in an alternative universe, the Lions draft Sanchez over Stafford.
Oh, interesting. Ooh, I think Stafford has that special sauce in him that allowed him to live through his time in Detroit. I don't know if many other people would have been able to live through that time with the amount of punishment he was taking.
Yeah. He definitely.
I'm glad it worked out. I'm glad we're in this universe.
Yeah, especially, I mean, no offense to Mark Sanchez, but he was definitely that USC more like Hollywood-esque quarterback. So I don't know if he had he definitely didn't have that Detroit hard, gritty vibe. And certainly with the abuse we put Matt Stafford through, I mean, he was the guy who played through several injuries and went out there and toughed it out. So, I mean, I'm not saying that Mark Sanchez isn't tough, but certainly when you look at Matt Stafford and how he's handled injuries throughout his career, he's certainly, I mean, outside of like Brett Favre and, losing part of his small intestine and being out there and playing, it's very rare that you see quarterbacks that are that durable. And Stafford was definitely he's definitely a guy that is not afraid to leave it all out on the field for his team. But it's certainly a good what if. We need your book, Jeffrey, about
what could be.
Yeah, what could be, and see how all the alternative worlds are playing out.
That'd be super interesting. I mean, I'll just look and see what's going on in that universe.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Well, this has been a wonderful evening here, Jeffrey. Again, thank you, everybody who tuned in with us. Blade, you have a wonderful night yourself as well. And Jeffrey, as always, we like to end the show with a Go Lions, and it's that time. So
Go Lions.
Very good. Go Lions, everyone. And we will see you on Sunday at 11 a.m. to talk Lions Titans. And until then, bye-bye.
Bye.